This is my last Guarnieri Ole Bull, and it is just looking like the original. Now the question is, does an instrument antique like this sound better compared to an instrument which is completely new made, perfect sharp edges and everything, and not this rough antiqued and without patina? It's not that easy to answer this question, because the main reason customers don't want an antiqued instrument is that they say that even the great masters made their instruments new style, which to a certain point is true. But very likely the instruments of the court in France, the Stradivarius which were ordered and then were brought to France, arrived already with this varnish pattern, because at the time they were in wooden violin cases and on these bumpy roads to France. Up to the point they arrived, the varnish was already chipping off, so the instruments arrived already with bumps. At that time, these things didn't disturb too much to anybody, and then maybe somebody polished a little bit, but they didn't pretend to have it completely new, I think, because at the time it was a little bit more difficult to transport things in such a safe way how we transported in our floating shipping boxes, which were even able to throw down the Po River Bridge, by the way, huh? You have to see that video. Some people and also makers make the instrument new style, and then to make it antique like this, they say then the instrument has to go through the same process like in real life, with this sweat of and the temperature of the musician, of the hand, saliva, whatever, and then they start to consume it that way. And if you do it that way, then actually people are forced to use acid and very aggressive solvents to take off the varnish, and then they have to scratch and to retouch and then to repolish. A very long process, and usually the result is not very convincing. I personally have the impression that there are used too aggressive materials to antique an instrument. I build my instruments, if I make a copy, already with the process of making to make it a copy. So I start from the very beginning already, from the outline, the arching, everything, that it will become just that specific instrument. I make the top, the back, the ribs separately, exactly the same way how it is on the pictures, and then I assemble it, and then it gets already, because of that it has the same layout and the purfling with all the holes and scratches and everything. After all, once it is done in the white, it is done in the white just the same way like a contemporary modern made new style violin. So at the very end, from my point of view, if you don't use aggressive procedures to antiquean the instruments, the quality is actually the same. Of course, to have an Ole Bull new style, you have to make the shape of an Ole Bull, and then you have to varnish it in a regular varnish. Would look very different to the Ole Bull Guarnieri, and would not have the same charming appearance like this scroll, for instance, where you see here this is inclined, and then they cut it under a little bit so it becomes a little bit more like a flower, like a typical late Guarnieri. Things like this is difficult if you make it new style. Yeah, and something like this I've never seen before. So, and the hybrid between antiquing and then new varnishing, that's something I think is a little bit, that doesn't make sense, and probably the public wouldn't understand what did this maker now do here. Yeah, for me, antique looking is just very beautiful, because beside of the flames of the wood, you have also all these lighter area, darker ones, a little bit of patina. There's a lot of tiny spots you can look at the instrument, and this makes the whole thing interesting, and for me becomes an item I love to keep in my hands. Others look at the same spots and they just say, I hate it, you know? So now it's up to you. What do you prefer? Antiqued, slightly antique, tough antique, the copy of that one, or even maybe a bench copy. That means that you put the original or the working bunch of the violin maker for 1 or 2 months and he makes you the precise copy, or do you want them varnished completely regular? I would love to know your opinion. Leave your comment below after you subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao, ciao.